الحمد لله وكفى والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الطيبات للطيبين والطيبون للطيبات سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Can you hear me at the back? पीछे आवाज आ रही है? क्लियर आ रही है या मैं इसका हाथ में पकड़ लूँ? Clear? Okay. Jazakallah. So today inshallah this will be a 2-session series that we have. Today will be the first session and then next week on Thursday we'll have the second session. Really, marriage in Islam, before, during, after, this is a whole a series-long course, but we want to give you within these 2 sessions some important principles. So today, inshallah, I'll be mentioning about 10 principles, which are about generally those people who are unmarried, looking for a prospective spouse, but even for those who are married, they will be able to benefit from these. And even next week when we speak about principles, I'll again be speaking about a few other principles. And they will be more for those who are married, but again those who are unmarried will be able to benefit from that. So the way I've designed session for today, inshallah, is that we will be speaking about 10 principles basically. And these are principles that all of us should be aware about in terms of how to go about understanding marriage in Islam, how should we approach marriage, understand marriage, and then also more practically than how to find the right one, right? Jo asal sawal hai for those who are unmarried. And then inshallah next week we'll be looking at a few principles for a happy, successful marriage. That will be day 2 inshallah. So today inshallah we start, my first principle about marriage is that marriage in Islam definitely has a physical element to it, but more than that, we should approach marriage in a spiritual way. I'm not negating the physical aspect, that definitely is there. Lekin we should go beyond that, because in Islam, marriage is not only meant to be physical, it also actually is a very spiritual act. And not just an act, it's also an ibadah. So I'm going to open up this point for you, right? That how we should approach marriage, that marriage should be viewed spiritually and not just physically. What do I mean by this? So I'm going to share with you right at the start a few ayat of the Quran, right? So we understand that in one, marriage, the Prophet ﷺ said was my sunnah, an-nikahu min sunnati. And if we do marriage with this intention that I want to fulfill the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, not only will you be getting the marriage, but also you'll be fulfilling the sunnah. Sunnah brings the muhabbat of Allah. In other words, marriage is a mechanism by which you can spiritually develop. You can attract the love for Allah. And you can draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So it's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And then the second thing that the Prophet ﷺ said, that whoever turns away from this, وَمَنْ رَغِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي, that person is not within us, he's not from us. So a person who does not marry, he's not following the way of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is the sunnah. Then linked with this, we also need to understand that this is part of our iman. The Prophet ﷺ said that nikah is half of your iman. Is half of iman. And this is incredible because before nikah, no matter what you do, jitni ibadat kar le, jitna ilm hasil kar le, no matter how pious, how righteous, how much tahajjud guzar, how much fasting you have, no matter how much ibadah you have in your life, the best you can hope is that you can get halfway. And the best of us can get 50% done with our iman. The other 50% starts after you get married. So shadi nikah ke baad, then only you can start the other 50% of your iman. So nikah is basically a source to complete your iman, perfect your iman, to adorn your iman, right? And in fact, nikah was also the sunnat of all the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, of all the prophets. There are 4 things which are the sunnah of all the prophets. Number 1 is modesty, haya. Second is fragrance, the use of itar. Number 3rd is miswak, and the 4th is nikah, marriage. So it's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, it's the sunnah of all the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, plus it's also a source of completing your very iman. In a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever is granted a good wife, he is helped to follow half of his religion, so let him fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the other half. Right? So clearly telling us that nikah is half of iman. Then this is also a way through which a person can stay away from sins, and this should be our intention, that I want to marry because I want to protect myself from sins. In a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said clearly that you should get married. For those who are able to afford, have the ability, and we'll come to what that means in a moment, right? But those who have the ability, they should speed up, they should get married. Why? Because marriage is something which can protect you from those unlawful, impermissible desires. So we should make this intention that I want to get married because number 1, first and foremost, I want to protect myself from sin. And if you do so, then the entire activity of marriage, all the years of marriage will count as ibadat. So saving ourselves from sin, saving ourselves from unlawful desire, impermissible desires. And not only can a person protect themselves from sin, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends His special help and assistance to those who make irada for nikah. In a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that there are 4 types of people who get the special help and assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the categories is that person who intends to do nikah in order to save their iman, in order to protect their haya, their modesty. And they get the special assistance and help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ta'ala takes upon Himself to help such an individual. Then there is a very famous hadith, all of you know, that if a person smiles at their spouse and their spouse will smile back at you, then Allah ta'ala looks at both of you when He smiles. Right? So in the deen of Islam, marriage is not completely physical. Right? You think that, you ponder about this hadith, you're getting the smile of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So nikah ke zariye, shadi ke zariye, by looking at your spouse with love, when she looks back at you with love, Allah ta'ala will look at both of you and He will smile. Right? Ab aap jitni tahajjud pad le, right, jitni namazein pad le, kahin aata nahi ki Allah ta'ala looks at you and smiles. You're spending a lot of money in charity. Right? There's no hadith which mentions that Allah ta'ala looks at you and smiles. You're fasting day in and day out, ek din roza, pe dusre din roza. Aap lagatar lage hue hain, but for all of those, these are no matter, don't misunderstand me, right? Roza, fasting and spending money in charity and praying to Allah Ta'ala and praying tahajjud, all of these are no doubt immense ibadah, they're very big ibadat. But this fazilat, this is only ascribed to nikah. You can only get this special fazilat when you marry and then the other person looks at you and smiles and you look back at that person. So we need to understand that nikah is a mechanism by which a person can get the smile of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on that person, on that man, literally on that man who wakes up at night and prays, and he prays tahajjud. And then he also wakes up his wife to pray. And if she resists, he would lightly spray water on her face, right? Just to wake her up. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also have mercy on that woman who wakes up at night and prays tahajjud, and then she wakes up her husband to pray. And if the husband resists, right, she lightly sprays water on the face of that individual. And in fact, in another riwayah it's mentioned that may Allah ta'ala have mercy on that man who has a beautiful wife, was an attractive wife, and then he sprays water on her. So sometimes you can make niyat of doing amal on this hadith, right? That I want to have an attractive wife so that I can wake her up and I can wake myself up, and both of us we can pray tahajjud at night, right? Again, you understand that Allah Ta'ala is showering His rahmat upon such an individual. Then, I've already mentioned that nikah is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Then another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that there will be a reward for every morsel of food that you put in the mouth of your wife. ये भी एक सवाब कमाने का तरीका है. Every morsel of food that you're putting will be getting a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we understand, and in fact, even the physical act, Islam may that also is mentioned, and having a physical relationship with your wife, a person will be rewarded for that as well. And in fact, when the Sahaba Ikram heard this, they were not able to understand initially, right? कि ये तो you're fulfilling your need, ये तो ज़रूरत होती है, right? इस तरह खाना ज़रूरत होती है, but we should not shy away from these things as well. आप लोग खाना खाते हैं, खाना ज़रूरत है ना? You guys eat because you are hungry. इस तरीके से when you guys are thirsty, you drink water. This is also a human need. This is not to be a superman and not have this need at all, right? वो फिर इस्लाम का उनसे ताल्लुक नहीं है. If you read the stories of the Sahaba, you understand they had this need and they would fulfill this need in the Islamic way. There's no embarrassment about this. There's no shying away from this. And the Sahaba Ikram, mashallah, they had a lot of strength as well. मैं थोड़ा openly बात कर रहा हूँ because आप सब, you can understand what I'm saying. They had a lot of physical strength as well. A lot of physical strength. बल्कि मैं, one of my own hadith teacher, in the dars of Sahih Bukhari Sharif, he was mentioning that if you literally read the lives of the Sahaba and you understand who they were and the amount of strength that they have, तो उनके मुकाबले में हम तो हिजरे लगते हैं. उनके अल्फाज थे ये. He was a muhaddis. He's saying कि आपको पता नहीं है, we don't speak about these things, we feel embarrassed and we feel shy. वो कहते हैं आप लोग तो कुछ नहीं है. If you read the Sahaba, and they would used to do it, right? They used to do it, and Hajj ka zamane ke andar bhi, and other occasions as well. Now you read and you realize that this is a human need. Yes, there are certain boundaries bata di, khane ki boundaries bata di, कि you eat halal खा लो, हराम ना खाओ, right? पीने की boundaries बता दी कि you can drink everything, शराब ना पियो. तो बिल्कुल इसी तरीके से boundaries बता दी. This is a human need. You should give, you should fulfill this need that you have. But ये boundary है, that do it within the boundaries of nikah. Don't go outside nikah. So Islam is a deen of fitrat. Those other religions, right, where they don't even talk about these things, or they shy away from talking about these things, that's not the concept of Islam. Islam understands that this is part of human fitrah, that they have these physical needs. Islam speaks about these needs, but also Islam gives us the guidelines on how you're supposed to fulfill these needs within the boundary, right, such that it is beneficial for you. So Sahaba Ikram, they asked this question, that Ya Rasulullah, that we are fulfilling our physical need and is pe bhi hame ajr mil raha hai. And the Prophet then explained that if you were to fulfill this need in an unlawful way, then would you get a sin? Guna milega? And the Sahaba Ikram said that yes, that will be incurring a sin. So now that if you're doing this in a way which is halal, which is permissible, you will get the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this shahwa, this desire within us, placed it within all of us. Right? Some people have more, some people have less. But Islam is a religion that speaks about this, that appreciates this. And this is part of being a man, part of being a human being, that you have this. But yes, there are certain guidelines if you do it within the boundary of Islam. In the other religions, that's why in Islam there's no monasticism. La rahbaniyata fil Islam. There is no celibacy in Islam. Right? That to be a religious person, you don't need to be celibate. Achha, what does this mean? Achha, compared to the other religions. अब देखिए, in Christianity, especially Catholicism, you will see that if you want to be spiritual, वहाँ मेयार of spirituality क्या है? That you need to forgo women. You need to forgo women, bishop, pope, whoever, if you want to attain a spiritual rank, you cannot marry. You need to be a celibate. And on the other hand, they view women as an obstruction in a man's spiritual progress. right? If you take Hinduism, the same thing. That if you want to be a spiritual, the yogi, the Brahman, the higher ranks that they have in spirituality, in their spirituality, there again you cannot marry. You need to be a celibate. In Buddhism as well, that you need to be a celibate, you cannot marry if you want to reach that higher level of spirituality which they call nirvana, right? And not only you're not supposed to marry, but in fact in Buddhism they view women to be a spiritual inferior thing, that even if you accidentally touch them, right, so you will defile your own self. You will not be able to attain that spirituality. So compared to that, Islam is it's completely different, diametrically opposite. That women are a source through which you can get the smile of Allah. Women are the source through which you can complete your iman. Actually, women, and women, your wife, right? Right, your spouse. Right? So yeah, disclaimer, right? Women means spouse. Your spouse she is a source through which you can fulfill the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So you understand that nikah in Islam is not just ibadat, it's babul ibadat. It's the door through which many ibadat open up. Many paths, many doorways of doing so many ibadat open up when you do nikah. And a person who hasn't done nikah, तो फिर वो दरवाजे बंद रहते हैं, right? मिसाल के तौर पे, when a person does nikah, after that you develop relations with the family of your wife as well, right? So पहले आपके 2 वालिदैन थे, अब 4 वालिदैन हो जाते हैं, right? You have their relatives as well. And now when you take care of your relatives as well, the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, the in-laws, so this in Arabic, this in Islam is called Sila Rahmi. Sila Rahmi, that aap अच्छा बर्ताव कर रहे हैं with those relatives on your wife's side. And in Islam, Sila Rahmi एक मुस्तकिल इबादत है. It's a source of barakah, it's a source of getting the qurb of Allah, it's a source of drawing close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So before you had 10 relatives, now you have 20 relatives. Doing good to them will bring barakah in your life, right? Then, not only, Sila Rahmi ke to, there's a whole separate talk that we can give, right? That the barakah, the blessings that a person gets because of this. Then nikah say, you have responsibilities on your shoulder as well. So as a result of those responsibilities, now when you do your ibadat, now when you pray, now when you fast, Allah multiplies the ajr. Allah multiplies the reward of that ibadah. Allah Ta'ala increases the rate, the ajr, the reward of ibadah. In hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that an unmarried person, they pray 70 rakat, 70 rakat salah, and a married person prays 2 rakah. This 2 rakah of a married person is heavier on the scale than the 70 rakah of an unmarried person. Why? Why? The reason is because this person, married person, he is fulfilling hukukullah as well as hukukul ibad. Dono hukuk hai. Hukukullah, hukukul ibad, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises more reward. So, ibadat, the ajr increases. Then when you come to marriage, you also have to spend. Normally we spend on the orphans, the poor, the needy. But there is also another type of spending, which is spending on your own wife. And then later on your own children. Ab when you're spending on your children, on your wife, hum isko majburi samajhte hain. Ki it's a need, it's a necessity, kya karenge, phas gaye, ab to kharch karna padega, right? Halaki in Islam, this is not to be viewed as a necessity. Spending money on your wife, on your children is a mustaqil ibadat. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the best sadaqah, the best charity that any person can give is to give it on your own wife, on your children, spend on your family. In a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that the 1 dinar, that which is spent in the path of Allah, that is spent in the path of Allah. Then there is another dinar which is spent to set a slave free, and you will get the reward for setting a slave free. And then there is 1 dinar which is spent on the family. فَأَفْزَلُ dinar. The most afzal dinar is that dinar that is spent on your spouse, on your family, on your children. So spending money, this will be a source of earning the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that on the day of Qiyamah, the first action which will be placed on the scale, on the weight, the mizan, will not be your salah. The first action will not be your roza, it will not be your zakat, but the first thing that will be placed on the mizan, on the name amal, in the mizan which will be weighing your name amal, will be the money, the wealth that you spend on your family. So यहाँ से अंदाज़ा लगाएं कि हम मस्जिद में कभी सदका देते हैं तो we hope कि हमें इससे अजर मिलेगा. You spend money on the orphan, the needy, तो एक उम्मीद होती है कि हमें ज़रा सवाब मिलेगा. लेकिन हम अपनी बीवी बच्चों पे खर्च करते हैं तो कभी सोचते नहीं है कि इस पे भी अजर मिलेगा, हालांकि इस पे सबसे ज़्यादा अजर मिलता है. The greatest reward that a person can get is by spending money on their wife, on their children. And then on the other hand, when a person gets married, you also get the opportunity to do khidmat of the other individual. खिदमत कर सकता है, और खिदमत करना भी एक इबादत है, बल्कि ऐसी इबादत है जिससे ऐसे अल्लाह ताला के कुर्ब के दरजात मिल जाते हैं which sometimes you will not be able to attain through your regular ibadah. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, when he got married, he was traveling with his wife and she was expecting, and they passed by an area where there was extremely cold. तो मौसम ठंडा है और she is expecting. Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he realized that my wife, she needs some warmth. कोई चीज़ आग चाहिए या कोई ऐसी जगह लेके जाना है so that she can get that warmth which is going to help her. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam looks here and there, and then दूर he sees this mountain on which there is this fire type of a thing. So he tells his wife that आप यहाँ रुकें, and then I see this fire, that maybe वहाँ कोई रहता है, या maybe मुझे कुछ आग मिल जाएगी, या कोई रहता है who will guide me on the way, who can guide me towards abadi, towards people, towards civilized society. तो आप यहाँ रुके, मैं आता हूँ. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, he goes there with the niyat of what? The niyat of khidmat, a concern, this concern for his wife. And he goes to that mountain, Mount Tur, and there Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses him with nabuwwat. Allah ta'ala makes him Kalimullah. और इस पूरे एपिसोड के अंदर you don't find any इबादत का तज़किरा नहीं है कि सैयदना मूसा अलैहिस्सलाम ने कोई इबादत करी हो, या कोई खर्चा किया हो, या कोई There's nothing else. The only thing that is mentioned in this whole episode is that Sayyidina Musa alayhi he had a concern for his wife, and because of that concern, he went to Mount Tur to get fire, and Allah Ta'ala blessed him with nabuwwat. तो कभी कभार इबादत, रेगुलर इबादत के ज़रिए इंसान को वो मकामात, वो दरजात, वो कुर्ब का जो अल्लाह ताला से ताल्लुक़ है, वो नहीं मिल सकता जो इंसान को खिदमत के ज़रिए वो मिल सकता है. और when a person जब निकाह हो जाता है तो ये तो खिदमत ही है. This should be one of our intentions, that I want to do khidmat of my wife. Yes, Islam mein, this is khidmat, you're serving. You are the Qawwamun, but Qawwam means caretaker. You're supposed to you're supposed to take care of the needs of your spouse. You're supposed to serve, you're supposed to help, you're supposed to assist, you're supposed to support her, assist her. That's what Qawwam means. It's not a dictator, right? So, आप अंदाज़ा लगाएं कि सही बुखारी शरीफ में there is a riwayah that there was a prostitute, a zania, a woman who used to commit adultery not once or twice, वो आदतन करती थी. That was a profession. But she saw this dog who was thirsty, and she gave water to that thirsty dog. And उस कुत्ते को पानी पिलाया तो अल्लाह ताला ने इसके बदले अल्लाह ताला ने उसके तमाम गुनाह को माफ़ फरमा दिए और तौबा की तौफीक अता फरमा दी. अल्लाह ताला डिक्रीड फॉर हर टू एंटर इनटू जन्नत. तो अगर एक प्यासे कुत्ते को पानी पिलाने के ऊपर इतनी खिदमत करिए, क्या खिदमत है कि सिर्फ प्यासे कुत्ते को पानी पिलाए, अल्लाह ताला ने इसके ऊपर मग़फ़िरत कर दी और जन्नत का फ़ैसला फरमा दिया. तो जब मियाँ बीवी होते हैं तो उसमें किसी को कहा कि पानी दे दो, पानी भी होता है, खिलाते भी हैं, बाहर से जाके चीज़ें भी लेके आते हैं, इतनी खिदमतें कर रहे होते हैं, तो
तो अल्लाह ताला इस पर कितना अजर अता फरमाएंगे, अल्लाह ताला कितना सवाब अता फरमाएंगे। तो ये सोचने की बात है कि इस्लाम में marriage is not simply about fulfilling our needs. We should recognize that it is a tremendous opportunity to come close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. अच्छा फिर क्या होता है मैरिज के अंदर? you also have children, right? ये एक नीयत भी होनी चाहिए that I want to marry because I want to get children. And why? Because there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that marry so that you can multiply and you can increase my ummat. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ said that क़यामत के दिन पे मैं फ़ख्र करूँगा कि मेरी उम्मत ज़्यादा है. I will be able to do फ़ख्र with other अम्बिया अलैहिस्सलाम कि मेरी उम्मत ही ज़्यादा है. तो ये एक नियत कर सकते हैं हम लोग कि I want to marry so that I can get more children, so that I will increase the ummat of the Prophet ﷺ and the Prophet ﷺ will do फ़ख्र upon me. So again you can link this with spirituality, right? एक नियत होनी चाहिए. Then how does Quran speak about this? There is a very beautiful metaphor where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains what marriage is and what this marital bond is between a husband and a wife. And the tashbih, the metaphor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in the Quran is that of a garment, clothing, libas. Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahun. That you, yani the husbands, you are a garment, you are a libas for your wife, and your wife, she is a libas for you. This is so beautiful. If you keep thinking, keep reflecting, keep pondering, इसमें इतनी हिकमतें हैं that why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use libas to explain this husband-wife relationship? First reason is that libas covers your fault. And this is what a husband-wife relationship is supposed to be. Husband is supposed to cover the faults of his wife, and the wife, she is supposed to cover the faults of her husband. Because जब साथ रहते हैं तो ज़ाहिरी बात है, no one is picture perfect, right? चाहे जितना हम अपने आप को प्रेजेंट करें as all perfect, right? अपने ऐब होते हैं, अपनी कमियां होती हैं, अपनी कोताहियां होती हैं. एक मामले में अच्छे होते हैं तो दूसरे मामले के अंदर कुछ कमियां भी होती हैं. And when you're living together, naturally those faults will become apparent to each other. So the marriage, the way Allah looks at marriage is that you're supposed to cover each other's faults. You're supposed to conceal. Just libas, the way libas covers, you cover each other's faults. एक ऐबों को छुपाने वाली बात है. So that is the first thing that we understand from this. Second, the libas is also something which protects you from extreme weathers. अगर बहुत सर्दी होती है तो लिबास protects you. Similarly, गर्मी के मौसम में भी लिबास acts as a protection. In the same way, husband-wife relationship is supposed to be a relationship of protection for each other. Husband, he protects his wife. The wife, she provides protection to her husband. Both of them, they're a source of protection, a security and a support for each other. Just like a libas is a source of security and protection for yourself from the external environment. शादी में भी कभी environment खराब हो जाता है, right? Because of a third person, third party, things are going up and down, ups भी आते हैं, downs भी आते हैं, there are crises भी आता है, financial difficulties भी आते हैं, there are some tests and trials and tribulations, tragedies also happen within nikah. But husband-wife is supposed to be such a strong bond with each other that they're always protecting, always a source of comfort, always a source of tranquility, peace for each other. Third thing about libas is that it gives you grace. It gives you beauty. एक जमाल पैदा होता है. And in the same way, the husband-wife relationship, each partner is supposed to give the other a beauty. You're supposed to be a source of izzat for the other individual, a source of respect, grace, integrity, honor for the other individual. Right? That's how this bond is supposed to be. That you are like that husband, right? You are like the husband, that because you are such a good husband, your wife gets grace. Your wife, she gets respect. Your wife, she gets honor. She gets dignity because you are such a good husband. Right? You're like a libas to her. That's what Allah is saying. That hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahum. Right? And the fourth and the last thing about libas is Libas is the closest thing to your physical jism. It's the thing which is closest to you. And यहाँ भी इशारा है कि you should make your wife the closest to you. She should be the closest to you. बिल्कुल. That kind of a relationship we are supposed to have in our deen. So now that we have understood, right, that we can mention several things else. The first principle is that we need to think about marriage spiritually as well. That it is a way to attain the qurb of Allah and a way to attain the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the second principle is that you need to save yourself until you get married. Save yourself for marriage. What does it mean? कि शादी से पहले, if a person does things which you're supposed to do within shadi, then this takes away the barakah from marriage itself. Having affairs, having such relationships premarital, before marriage, and doing such things and deriving lazzat in a way which you're supposed to do with your lawfully wedded wife, if a person does this before marriage, then you will get the lazzat, but you will lose out on the lazzat that you were supposed to get in marriage. The way you can understand this is, every human being, they have a limited quota of how much lazzat they will get from this. हर बंदे का एक fixed quota है. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has fixed that this is the amount of lazzat that you will get in this aspect of your life. It's now up to us. If a person fulfills their quota pre-marriage, then post-marriage that lazzat is already taken, the quota is already over. And then throughout their marriage, they will not be able to find that sukoon. They will not be able to find that what Allah Ta'ala says, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, that get tranquility from her, sukoon from her, contentment from her. Sukoon nahi rahega. There'll be besukuni, bekarari, beitmanani, bebarkati in marriage. Always fighting, always bickering, always shouting, always screaming, always having flashpoints, always having these in-house fighting with each other. And unfortunately, we see this a lot in our culture as well, and even other cultures as well, right? We see that because sometimes a person is not careful about what they're doing before marriage, right? That has a direct impact on what a person does after marriage. We were in Michigan. My wife, she was mentioning that there was a university couple, and before they got married, for 4 years in university they would live, and they had this affair relationship with each other, and they were the talk of the town. They were the talk of the university. Everyone knew that the lovebirds हैं, right? They're always talking, always with each other. It's such a beautiful couple. They're such compatible with each other, and they're always, people उनको देखते थे कभी तो ये तो rush करते थे कि अगर couple हो तो ऐसा couple हो, right? So they spend their 4 years at university like that. जिस तरह होता है, you have university में couples बन जाते हैं, and then they live, right? So they lived like that, and then they decided that ठीक है, now let's get married. And then finally, when they got married after graduating from university, so they got married, and then within about roughly 3 months, that marriage collapsed. Their marriage collapsed, and they were filing for divorce, and eventually they separated. They said that we cannot live together. And अब यहाँ क्या हो रहा था, right? 4 साल तक, right? They were the talk of the entire college campus. That this is the perfect couple, the match made in heaven. Lekin the moment they got married, within 3 months, the marriage could not last for 3 months. Why? This is the bebarkati, right? The bebarkati of those 4 years before marriage came down when they got married within 3 months. So there is a way out of it if a person makes tawbah. Right, they make tawbah, they leave that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them a second chance. But if a person doesn't repent of this sin, they continue in such interact, such engagement, such affairs, such relationships, pre-marriage, right? वो बरकत ख़त्म कर देती है. और फिर जो ना कभी बार हम परेशान होते हैं, पूरी ज़िंदगी शादीशुदा गुजार रहे होते हैं, लेकिन वो सुकून नहीं मिल रहा होता. और वो सुकून मिलेगा कैसे, क्योंकि सुकून तुमने पहले ले चुका है. वो लज्जत मिलेगी कैसे, वो लज्जत हम पहले ले चुके हैं. This is one of the most important principles to remember, that we need to save ourselves. ये मुश्किल काम होता है, मुश्किल काम होता है, लेकिन this is the नुस्खा. People ask, how can you get a successful, happy, zabardast marital, exemplary marital life? It starts before that you have to save yourself for that marriage. And when you make that sacrifice, when you make that mujahida, then because of your mujahida, Allah will put barakah. Allah will put barakah in your marital life, then you will have that exemplary, zabardast marital life. That will happen, but you have to make mujahida before, struggle before, sacrifices before that. So what kind of sacrifices do we need to make? Obviously, you need to restrain your nafs. Restrain yourself, right? And in a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ gave us a few other tips as well, that for those who can marry, you should marry. And those who are not able to marry, but they have this problem of desires, they should fast. They should fast. Fasting is a shield that can save a person from giving into those unlawful desires. So fasting, and again, you can fast, 3 days every month. On the 13th, 14th and 15th, you can fast every week. Agar problems are there, fast every week, Mondays and Thursdays. And if a person really has a lot of problem, right? Some of our teachers just say that you can fast even every alternative days, right? But this is one way. And the other is to control our gaze, right? To safeguard our gaze, to control our gaze. And if we can control our gaze, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give us the halawat, the lazzat, right? When actually we get married. Then the third principle, I believe, is also a very important principle which not many people speak about, that don't delay your marriage unnecessarily. I know couples here in Pakistan, I know boys in Pakistan, they view themselves as boys, वो adult, वो मर्द हो चुके हैं, बूढ़े हो चुके हैं मेरी नज़र के अंदर, वो अपने आप को अभी भी boy समझता है. They're cross 30, cross 35, अभी boy और boy वाली हरकतें कर रहे होते हैं, right? Don't delay, there's a concept that you want to be happily married. They are happily unmarried. Happily unmarried. There's a separate category of people, right? But this is, a problematic. And it's problematic for a couple of reasons. The dini reason bhi hai, right? Dini reason to ye hai, because the Islam says that as soon as you have the ability, get married, right? And in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that those who intend to get married, they will get the special help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani the three things which will attract the special rahmat, the help of Allah ta'ala, one of them is when you make the irada to get married. Irada kare. Right? You make that commitment that I want to, you speak to your parents, you say that I want to get, I'm at that age, main kar sakta hu, I want to. Then Allah ta'ala will put this life, your circumstances, your resources, jo bhi cheezein Allah ta'ala halat bana denge, which are conducive for you to actually take that final step. So ek niyat shuru se ye honi chahiye that I want to get an early marriage. Right? Don't delay this. And like I said, non-dini perspective as well, this is harmful to delay marriages. Why? Because let's say, you graduated from university 24, right? Then after that you get a job. Ab job bhi mil gayi, university bhi ho gayi, you're all set. Right? You're all set because you have a place, you're working, and you also have, you completed your education. The Prophet ﷺ got married when he was 25. अगर सुन्नत पे अमल करने तो ये भी एक सुन्नत है 25, राइट? लेकिन होता क्या है, अच्छा हम कमाएंगे कहाँ से, रिस्क. तो ठीक है, I understand that you need to, and that's what I'm saying, that you have a stable job and you're sort of working, right? There in the ayat of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions something, that those who are fakir, then let them get married, Allah ta'ala will make them ghani. Right? And there's also a similar hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, one Sahabi came and said that मुझे थोड़ा सा रिस्क में मसला हो रहा है, मुझे मैं क्या करूं? The Prophet said, get married. Get married, Allah Ta'ala will solve the problem of your risk. Allahu Akbar. And this is something we have seen in now several cases. Several people we know, people here in Pakistan, people in the US as well, that they were struggling to get their job, struggling with their MBAs, struggling with completing their master's degree, struggling to get their first job. लेकिन इरादा कर लिया कि मुझे निकाह करना है. अल्लाह ताला ने उनको MBA भी मुकम्मल हो गया, मास्टर्स भी मुकम्मल हो गया, and they also got their first job as well. Plus Allah Ta'ala gave them enough that mashallah से they started living properly, right? अपना घर भी ले लिया, अपनी गाड़ी भी ले लिया, मजे में. तो अल्लाह ताला की बरकत होती है. हर बंदा अपना रिस्क खुद लेके आता है. Waiting for that perfect house and perfect car and the perfect salary and the perfect career and that perfect thing will never come, right? That type of perfection will never come, right? ये शैतान का एक हरबा होता है. It's a deception of shaitan, because shaitan knows. Don't think that you are in this alone. Shaitan is with you, right? And shaitan will try his level best to ensure that number one, you don't get married. And number two, when you get married, then will try to create problems within that marriage. Right? This is shaitan. In Surah Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that shaitan will try to cause separation between couples. Right? And awwal to chayega, why does shaitan want you not to marry? Because he knows the nikah is babul ibadat. So many doors of ibadat will open for this individual. He doesn't want you to complete shariman. So he will create such thoughts within you that kamaoge kahan se, khaoge kahan se. Right? Don't wait for that delusion. Don't wait for that time that everything will be perfect. If you have a basic education, if you have a basic job, you're ready. Right? You're ready and you can get married. Allah Ta'ala will give you more risk. Allah Ta'ala will give you barakah. Allah Ta'ala will give you kasrat. Allah Ta'ala will give you barakat as well. Dono cheezein milengi. And Allah Ta'ala will give you His help as well. Special assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. अच्छा, normally what happens is that if you delay your marriages for long, 1-2 साल, 2-3 साल फिर भी ठीक है. पर जो होता है ना कि 30 plus and happily unmarried, and then 35 plus and happily unmarried, there is, your 20s, 25, 26, 27, 20, these are the prime time of your youth. And you're still moldable, you're still malleable, you can adapt. If you get married, the person whom you're marrying, she will not be exactly like you, right? So thoda sa you will need to adapt, thoda sa she will need to adapt. But this age is such where it's easily for each other to adapt. You're still malleable. The आदत इतनी rigid नहीं होती, इतनी stubborn नहीं होती कि आप दूसरे की खातिर थोड़ा तब्दीली कर सकते हैं. You can change a part of yourself, you can change a part of your character, you can change a part of your routine. कुछ चीज़ें होती हैं जो आपको change करनी पड़ती हैं to be able to live together, right? And this age is, it's easily you can change those things about yourself. We changed, all of us changed, right? हम जो शादी से पहले थे बदल गए, right? बदलना पड़ता है. अगर बदलेंगे नहीं तो how will you be able to live? How will you be able to live with the other person, right? So you need to change. You should get this pony out of your mind, right? That I can be as it is. Marriage means give and take. Marriage means adaptability. Marriage means you need to have some tolerance level, right? Some clearance level. So you need to learn all of these skills. You need, and the learning that takes time. Like at this stage of your life, it's easy to learn, it's easy to change, it's easy to adapt. When you cross 30 and especially late 30s, and unfortunately there are people like that, right? Unnecessarily, there is a need, right? But unnecessarily delaying, when you reach that particular age of your life, habits become rigid. आदत बड़ी पक्की हो जाती हैं, बड़ी पुख्ता हो जाती हैं, फिर बदलना मुश्किल हो जाता है. और जब आदत बदलना मुश्किल हो जाता है, then फिर वो flash points होता है, right? The other person comes in and you're not able to adjust, you're not able to adapt, and as a result, then that marriage becomes very difficult. So the key to a successful marriage is adaptability. Then finally, now we come to the fourth principle. And the fourth principle is, now when you are choosing, so how should you choose, right? And here I will, all of you have heard this very famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that what's the criteria? That the criteria when you look for a woman, the Prophet ﷺ said, is that a woman can be married for 4 reasons. Number 1, her wealth. Number 2, her lineage, yani nasab. Number 3, her beauty. And number 4, her deen. And the Prophet ﷺ said that seek that woman which has deen. Now let's open this up, right? My fourth principle is that prioritize deen. When you're choosing, prioritize deen. Even though looks, wealth and hasab nasab, they're permissible. Permissible hai, they should be on the table, you should be looking at those things, but prioritization should be given to deen. Why? The reason is because every relationship you need a bond. You need something stable on which that relationship can be built. The foundation needs to be stable, such that if everything else goes away, that foundation remains, right? So normally what happens is that the glue which is holding the husband-wife together, sometimes there is an emotional need, sometimes there is a physical attraction, sometimes children, right? Bachon ki khatir they're married. Sometimes it's it's just kuch aur, there is emotional hai, physical hai, children hai, right? So there are different reasons why they will be together, that glue which is holding them together. But these are things which can come and go. So for example, that emotional attachment can dwindle as years pass by. That physical attraction can also reduce as years pass by. Children, they grow old, they leave you, they have their own lives. That bond also weakens when the children go away. So it means that at the end of the day, then there is nothing on which your relationship is standing. Right? अगर यही सिर्फ चीज़ें थी जिनकी बुनियाद पे दी शादी करी थी, तो फिर ये तो ऊंच नीच होती रहती है, आगे पीछे होती रहती है, कभी कम हो जाती है, कभी हट जाती है. और अगर खुदा ना खास्ता ये चीज़ें चली जाएं, तो फिर what is your relationship standing upon? Nothing. Hollow, vacuum. That is why the Prophet ﷺ said that make the bunyad a spiritual bond. The bunyad, the base is, think about like a pyramid, right? The base should be spiritual. The base should be deen. The base should be the relationship with Allah. Right? That is the base, and then on that base, you can put up other things as well. The physical attraction should be there definitely. The emotional connection should also be there, right? Attractive should be also there. Children, nasab, wealth, all of those things, keep adding. But if you put the base as deen, then even if the other things go away, there are ups and downs in your life, right? The base will always be there, right? And hence the marriage will always be stable. The marriage will remain, right? So if you look at this hadith, right, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned make it a spiritual basis, right? But then there are other things which are mentioned. Number 1 is wealth. Now ये बहुत होता है, आप लोगों को पता भी है कि माल तो ऐसी चीज़ है जो आती जाती है, right? One day this person has a lot of wealth, and the other, the wealth goes away. अभी तो, so wealth is again temporary, it's fleeting, comes and goes. Similarly, second thing is nasab. कि nasab is also important. देखना चाहिए कि कैसा नसब है, ख़ानदान कैसा है, right? लेकिन prioritization should be दी, priority should be given to दी. और कभी कभार ये भी देखना चाहिए कि the person himself, what is she like? हो सकता है ख़ानदान तो बहुत अच्छा हो, right? लेकिन वो खुद अच्छी ना, right? वो खुद, she has a very different way of looking at her life. तो फिर ऐसे शख्स का क्या फ़ायदा, right? कि आपने, you're not marrying the parents, you're not marrying the khandan, you're marrying her, right? She needs to be of a particular, right? Compatibility should be there. So khandan is important, right? But it should not be the basis, right? Then third thing is beauty. Now I should mention first, I'm going to clarify that attraction is important in our deen. There is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that marry people whom you are attracted to, right? So attraction, physical attraction, that is there. I'm not negating that, right? However, attraction and beauty, they're two different things. Attraction and beauty, they're two different things. So sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make her beautiful for you, right? And people say beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. So an overemphasis on looks, overemphasis, right? That is also not a healthy basis for our deen. Why? Because there's a plastic surgeon in America who said something which is quite maze ki cheez hai. He said to the women that, look, if you want, I can make you the most beautiful woman in the world, but I cannot make the ugliest man fall in love with you. Right? I can make you the most beautiful woman in the world, but I cannot make the ugliest man fall in love with you. What does that mean? That means that beauty is something different from attraction, from love. Love के अंदर love के लिए और भी ingredients चाहिए होता है. So that is why we should think that yes, physically attracted, but that perfect model जो हमने जहन में बनाया हुआ है, right, कि गोरी चिट्टी, height 6 और इतना और ये कलर और नाक ऐसी और कलर ऐसा, और कभी बार मर्दों की इतनी नहीं होती रिक्वायरमेंट्स, तो मर्दों की माओं की ज़्यादा होती हैं, right? The mother, Allah Akbar Kabir, right? The kind of cases that my wife, she keeps telling me, right, कि बार हम चाहते हैं कि लड़का हो, वो अच्छा दीनदार हो, और नहीं, वो बेटी की नहीं आते ना, कि वो अच्छा दीनदार बच्ची होनी चाहिए, she should be a दीनदार गर्ल, लेकिन गोरी चिट्टी होनी चाहिए, और उसकी हाइट इतनी होनी चाहिए, और नाक थोड़ी ऐसी होनी चाहिए. Right? So these things are not in our deen. These things are not in our deen, and a person should not sacrifice a good rishta because of these things. Right? If there is deen in that woman, right? If there is attraction, right? And if there is worldly compatibility, then that's all what that matters in our deen. हाँ, कभी कभार ऐसा होता है कि सूरत तो बहुत अच्छी है, लेकिन सीरत कैसी थी? Right? You're marrying the surat. There's a joke that people say about marriage, that पहले दिन you look at the surat, फिर पूरी जिंदगी you're looking at the सीरत of that individual. अगर सूरत ही सूरत है, no सीरत, then what's that it's unhealthy, right? You need to look at both the things, surat as well as सीरत, right? And sometimes beauty, like I said, it goes away. Right? It's also temporary, it's also fleeting. It comes and goes, and the prettiest, most beautiful women, right, in the 20s will become all wrinkles when she is 40, 50, 60. Right? So that cannot be made, again, that cannot be made the basis. The basis has to be something which is more permanent, which is more established, right? Which is more stable. Achha. Now that so this was one hadith. Then there is another hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that that you should marry someone who is suitable to you. Suitability. That when the one whom you are pleased with his deen and his manners comes to you seeking your daughter in marriage, marry him. Otherwise, fitna and great corruption will become widespread in the earth. Right? Any suitability. Now, in the deen of Islam, then, if you want to summarize, what is the criteria for looking for a prospective spouse? There are two things. One is deen, that you look at their deen, and the other is that you look at their compatibility. I want to open up both of these things. What do they mean? When we speak about looking at the deen of the girl, so number one, you should look at her, taqwa. कि खुदा का खौफ है, does she have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not? How is a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because ultimately, outwardly, everyone can pretend to be very nice, very cute, very good conversations, and it's very easy to deceive the other person when you're just at that particular stage. लेकिन जब पूरी जिंदगी गुजारना होता है, so for that, there you need taqwa. You need the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because you have to discharge the other person's rights. And if she does not have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does not have taqwa in her heart, very difficult for that marriage to remain stable. Because again, taqwa nahi hai, that basis is not there. Right? So taqwa, the fear of Allah, the connection of Allah, the relationship with Allah, that is something we should be looking for. Another thing is that look at her Islamic education as well. She will grow up to become the mother of your children, and she will be raising up your children, and you would want your children to be raised up on the principles of Islam. So for that, she knows deen ki ilm hona chahiye. कम से कम अगर आलिमा नहीं भी है तो कम से कम बेसिक इल्म ज़रूर होना चाहिए. इतना इल्म हो कि वो अपनी बच्चों की प्रॉपर तरबियत कर सके. एंड अनफॉर्चुनेटली इसमें भी बहुत कोताही होती है कि द हस्बैंड, उनको भी इल्म नहीं है, द वाइफ शी ऑल्सो डजंट हैव दैट इल्म, एंड एज अ रिजल्ट द चिल्ड्रन दे ग्रो अप एंड दे आर क्लूलेस. राइट? सो वी शुड लुक फॉर समवन जहाँ अल्लाह ताला का एक कनेक्शन, दे हैव द कनेक्शन विद अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला, plus they also have some level of knowledge about their deen as well. Right? तो इल्म की बड़ी बरकत होती है. अगर कोई आलिमा से हो जाए शादी और जो मुत्तकी भी हो तो फिर मज़ा होता है एक सेंस में, बिकॉज एटलीस्ट यू आर सेफ अबाउट द चिल्ड्रन, क्योंकि तरबियत होगी तो अच्छे माहौल के अंदर होगी, दीन के वैल्यूज़ के ऊपर होगी. So I cannot emphasize how big a relief this is. Otherwise, तो फिर इंसान अपने बारे में भी परेशान होता है, your relationship with your wife, but also then your children as well, because ये तो नस्लों का मामला होता है, right? Your children, the whole lineage, right? What will happen to them? And the third thing to look for in their deen is their akhlaq. कि akhlaq कैसे, सीरत कैसी है, right? So akhlaq, कितना सब्र है, कितना शुक्र है, how much generosity, how much compassion, how much affection, ये अखलाक, something which we should be looking at. Then after deen, the other thing we should be looking at is worldly compatibility. In compatibility, check for the family background. कम से कम एक ही background हो कि if you went to university, she should also have gone to university, ताकि हम जब बात करें तो you can speak and she can understand, right? Otherwise आप बोल रहे हैं she is not able to understand कि कहाँ के. So there has to be some level of compatibility. The wavelength has to match, the frequency has to match in terms of worldliness as well. So university education, अगर sometimes people say doctor है तो doctor से ही शादी करनी चाहिए, ठीक है, कर सकता है. Right? Sometimes doctors can understand doctors better, right? So that is fine. Education, profession, these are the things we should be looking at in terms of worldly compatibility. Family background as well, right? What kind of background they have in their family, and obviously compatibility, like I said, attraction may be देखनी होती है. How much attracted you are to that individual. Now, how do you check for these things, right? How do you know that she is muttaqi? How do you know that she has knowledge of deen? How do you know she has good akhlaq? So isme one thing is that you can try to find mutual friends. If you're university ke andar hai, you can find mutual friends, someone who's understanding. Mutual friends, some intermediary who knows you, who knows them as well. You can do some investigation. Try to find out from your mutual friends, family friends, relatives, about what kind of individual that person is. And there are ways to do this, right? Profile check kar lein, right? You can check maybe their teachers, right?
connect to their teachers, ask them that how is she, or you can even एक दो वाक़यात हैं लेकिन वो मेरे ख्याल से next time I'll share them with you. There are ways to go about checking how much dunyadi compatibility there is. If there is someone on campus that you like, right, then mamla is very easy, right? One thing you need to do is just stop, right? You stop, right? And then number one, you can either put some intermediary in between. Speak to some intermediary who knows you, who knows them, that you're interested, and let's see if they're also interested or not. And then tell your parents as well, right? Bring your parents on board into that equation so that it's not you and directly her, right? Bring some third person, some intermediary as well as your parents, and then do it the halal way. We don't want to stop you, but we want to make this into a halal relationship. Alhamdulillah, I know many friends of mine who were at university, and mashallah, they did this the halal way, they got attracted, feelings ho jati hain, right? But if you're clear about someone at university, that this is the person, right, then just do it, right? Stop that relationship, stop there, right? And then do that, bring third person, intermediary, speak to your parents, and then take it from there. So you can take help from your teachers. Sometimes if you don't know, right, kisse karni hai, take help from like-minded people, like-minded friends, your relatives. यहाँ मुझे पहले इतना पता नहीं था, लेकिन after getting married, I'm learning more about this concept of rishta aunties. And it seems to work remarkably well in our society. Right? Rishta aunties, ye, agar if it is done properly, right, ये ज़बरदस्त तरीका है, right? That you give her, आप जाते हैं अपने requirements बता देते हैं, and then there's someone who connects you, right? So this is also one of the ways which can be done. So rishta aunties, your parents, your relatives, your teacher, your like-minded friends, right? Like-minded friends also have a lot of role to play, and especially college friends. Right, like-minded college friends, वो ज़बरदस्त आपको रिश्ते बता सकते हैं, right? And especially if one of them is married, right? Then तो पूरी दुनिया खुल जाती है, right? If they are married now, they know everyone, and because of their wife. So approach them, right? Tell them, Acha, now what do you need to do here? What you need to do is that, especially when you're taking help with other people, one principle is that you need to communicate your preference very clearly to the other individual. And this also means your parents. Sometimes parents के ज़हन में एक होता है कि ऐसी होनी चाहिए, right? और आपकी preference बिल्कुल कुछ और होती है. You need to clearly communicate this to your parents कि मुझे ये चाहिए. I want someone who has a relationship with Allah. I want someone who has some level of knowledge of Islam. I want someone where some prioritize deen, akhlaq. आप उनको clearly बताएं कि मेरे लिए ये चीज़ important है. This is priority. Many times the mistake that guys they make here is कि वो they leave it everything to their parents, right? कि बस वो decide करेंगे whatever they decide. And उनका criteria बिल्कुल मुख्तलिफ होता है कि ऐसी गोरी, ऐसा ये. But they're looking for a very different criteria. You need to have open channels of communication. Completely open channels of communication, at least about this one issue of your life. बाकी बातें आप उनकी हर बात मान लें, right? लेकिन इसमें ज़िंदगी आपको गुजारनी है. अगर if you end up with the wrong person, someone who has no inkling with deen से बहुत दूरी है, and you wanted someone दीनदार, फंस गए, and then literally आप फंस जाते हैं, the whole home environment, children, everything gets affected. Why? Because you left the decision completely to your parent. This is that one area, that one aspect of your life where you can't put your foot down. अगर कोई ऐसा बिल्कुल ही नामुनासिब रिश्ता है, तो आप कहते हैं मुझे दीनदार चाहिए, someone at least something in deen, right? Some connection with Allah, and the other person is completely off, right? It's just looks, right? Then you can say to your parents, आराम से, hikmat से, मोहब्बत से, try to convince them, because at the end of the day,
Parents actually, they don't know what you want. उनके ज़हन में होता है कि बस, at the bottom of their heart, they want what is best for you, but they don't know what is best for you. Right? They want what is best for you, but you need to tell them what is best for you. That this is what I'm looking for. And when you tell them, that will help them as well to search for someone who fits that criteria. तो उनको बताएं और खुल के बताएं, and don't shy away from this. Don't feel embarrassed. Keep this channel completely open. This channel of communication be completely open, and have a very open and a very frank and a very honest relationship with your parents about this. Now, what is the process in deciding then? That is this really the person? So here one thing is that you need to use your head first before your heart. Use your head. And by head means that just check for these things, like I said. Check for dini compatibility, check for dunyavi compatibility, and you check for things like you can even have a meeting with that person, right? When you can meet that other person, and in fact in Islam it's recommended to meet that individual, and in that meeting it's not interrogation, right? FBI agent just interrogating, not like that, but keep open-ended questions. Ask, what is your concept about Islamic marriage, right? How do you spend your free time, right? How, what scholars influence you, right? Keep it open-ended, that the other person doesn't feel that this person is just bombarding these questions at me. Do it gently, do it with wisdom, keep it open-ended, but ask that what is your daily schedule like? What are your career plans, right? What are your plans for raising a family? And what are your aspirations in life? Ask such questions, there is no harm. And by getting the answers to this question, you will get a feeling about what the other person is, right? I know one person, उन्होंने पूरा एक इंटरव्यू शीट बना दी थी, right? And they sent that as an email. That I had a few questions, again very open, very broad-minded questions, that I would like if you can answer these questions. So this can be done, right? This should be done in some cases as well, if you don't know that other person so closely. Then you can also what not to do here is that don't make assumptions about the other person. That if she wears a hijab, she is definitely religious. Doesn't mean so. Not necessarily. Right? Sometimes, person, she wears hijab, but they're not religious from the inside. Hota? Right? You need to don't make assumptions. If there is something, you can ask her. Right? And also, don't expect the other person to change completely. If 25 years of her life she wasn't able to change, right, then magic koi wand nahi hai that after marriage ekdam se she will be able to change. It's not like that. Yes, part of herself she will be able to adjust, but radically she will not be able to change. Right? कि अच्छा मैं अभी शादी कर लेती हूँ तो फिर तो बिल्कुल ही फिर दीनदार हो जाएगी. Right? अभी तो बिल्कुल कुछ नहीं, हिजाब भी नहीं, दुपट्टा भी नहीं, right? Sleeveless. And जब मैं शादी कर लूँगा तो फिर तो माशाल्लाह अबाया बुर्का सब आ जाएगा, right? क्योंकि मैं दीनदार. अब इस तरीके से radical changes they don't come, right? Illa mashallah. So don't expect them to change, right? Like that. Don't make assumptions like that. And also very important, don't ignore your gut feeling. Your gut feeling matters a lot as well. Right? If your gut feeling is telling you something, 9 out of 10 times, उसमें कोई ना कोई हकीकत होती है, कोई ना कोई वजन होता है. So just keep that gut feeling also before you. Don't ignore that completely. Alright? So first thing is that you're using your head. Then once you're using, after that, then is that you take mashwara from other people around you. You inquire, you investigate, right? Take advice from other people. And then third is you take advice from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Islam, this is called istikhara.
अब मैनी पीपल हैव क्वेश्चंस कि इस्तिखारा कैसे करना चाहिए, मुझे उसका नाम नज़र आ जाएगा, मुझे उसका इल्हाम हो जाएगा, राइट, मुझे ख्वाब में वो नज़र आएगी, क्या होगा। तो ये भी थोड़ा समझ लें कि इस्तिखारा क्या होता है। इस्तिखारा इज़ वेरी सिंपल, that whenever you're undecided about someone, that is she the one or someone else is the one, या is she करनी है या नहीं करनी, right, you're undecided 50-50, so then you pray 2 rakat nafil with the niyat of istikhara, and then after that you recite salat istikhara, the dua istikhara, and in that dua istikhara you should be reflecting on the words, because इसके मायने बहुत खूबसूरत है कि या अल्लाह ये जो डिसीजन है इज़ शी द वन, और अगर इसके अंदर खैर है, बरकत है, इफ दिस डिसीजन एज खैर एंड बरकत फॉर मी, माई दीन, माई दुनिया, माई आखिरा, देन अल्लाह लेट दिस बी द वन, एंड अल्लाह गाइड मी टू हर एंड मेक दिस प्रोसेस ईजी फॉर मी एंड हेल्प मी एंड पुट बरका इन दिस फॉर मी. एंड ऑन द अदर हैंड, इफ शी इज़ नॉट द वन and if she is not suitable for my deen, for my dunya, for my akhirah, then Allah take me away from her and take her away from me. Both ways, right? Take me away and take her away from me, and grant me someone better, and then grant me your raza and baraka in that decision for myself. So we should, this is called salat-e-istikhara. अब salat-e-istikhara हमें चाहिए कि हम इसकी आदत बना लें, और स्पेशली निकाह के मामले के अंदर इसको हम 3 दिन करें, 7 दिन करें, 14 दिन करें, लगातार करते रहें जब तक योर हार्ट टिल्स वन वे और दी अदर. इन इस्तिखारा अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला will inspire your heart, and you will receive the inspiration when your heart will turn one way or the other. अभी 50-50 है, you're not sure, unsure, right? So when you keep doing istikhara, the heart will begin to tilt. Either she is or she is not. Right? And when you feel that tilt in your heart, then you should know that this is now the dua coming true for yourself. And then jahan bhi dil mail ho raha hai, wahi usi mein khair hogi. A person should go for that decision. So इसमें कोई नाम नज़र नहीं आता. It's not कि मैं जा रहा था, मैंने बिलबोर्ड पर उसका नाम देख लिया तो she is the one, right? ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, ये सब वहमी बातें हैं, इसका इस्तिखारा से कोई ताल्लुक़ नहीं है. इस्तिखारा बस मैंने ये तरीका है, सुन्ना तरीका है, तो मैंने आपको बता दिया. बस इसको करते रहें. अगर पहले दिन दिल मायल नहीं हो रहा तो डू इट फॉर 3 days. अगर फिर भी नहीं मायल हो रहा तो कंटिन्यू फॉर एज लॉन्ग एज द हार्ट इज़ नॉट टर्निंग हियर एंड देयर. आई विल टेल यू माई ओन टीचर, माई ओन शेख, वो अपने बारे में वाक़या बताते हैं कि जब मेरी शादी का वक्त आया, कहते मैंने अपनी पूरी ज़िंदगी अपनी वालदा की हर बात मानी है, हर बात, कभी उनको ना नहीं कहा मैंने. वो जो कहती थी मैं करता था. हत्ता कि कहते हैं कि मुझे when I graduated from university, I wanted to do PhD in electrical engineering. Because एक जहन था, I used to come first and second, third, so मेरा जहन था, शौक़ पढ़ाई की तरफ से था, पढ़ाई की तरफ ज़्यादा था, तो मैं चाहता था कि I go into academics and I do PhD. पर अल्लाह की शान ये हुआ कि the city where I used to live, तो वहाँ there was a sugar mill factory, one of the biggest in Pakistan, if not the biggest, Shakarganj, right? वहाँ there was an opening for an electrical engineer. And my mother said that बेटा PhD को छोड़ दो, यहाँ आके जॉब कर लो, you'll be with me, मेरे साथ रहो, I want कि मेरे साथ रहो. तो वो कहते हैं कि this was a very big decision for me. मैंने अपना पूरा career, I left my career for the sake of my mother, and I came and I started living with my mother, and I went and I did that job. फिर वो एक अलग कहानी है, अल्लाह ताला ने उस रिस्क में इतनी बरकत पैदा कर दी कि 50 साल पहले वो 7 लाख रुपए कमाते थे पर मंथ, राइट? 50 साल पहले की बात, 40 साल पहले की बात है. तो वो एक अलग बात होती है कि when you give into, माँ बाप की खिदमत करते हैं, माँ बाप की बात मानते हैं, तो अल्लाह ताला दुनिया के रिस्क में भी बरकत अता फरमा देता है. लेकिन मतलब ये कि उन्होंने हर बात अपनी माँ की मानी. लेकिन वो फरमाते हैं कि जब शादी का वक्त आया तो माई मदर शी वॉन्टेड मी टू मैरी वन ऑफ माई कज़न्स, लेकिन मुझे पता था वो दीनदार नहीं है, और मेरी ख्वाहिश थी दैट आई वांटेड टू मैरी समवन जो दीनदार.
वो पर्दा भी नहीं करती थी जहाँ मेरी माँ चाहती थी। लेकिन वो होता ना कि वो बेटे खेले हैं, बड़े एक साथ बड़े हुए हैं, तो कज़न्स हैं, रिश्ता अच्छा जाएगा तो फिर आपस में कनेक्शन और मजबूत हो जाएगा। तो माँ बाप की एक थिंकिंग होती है, अपने जहन में बच्चे पैदा नहीं होते वो पहले से बना लेते हैं कि जो ना ये द टू विल गेट मैरिड, राइट। तो उनकी अपनी प्लानिंग चल रही होती है। तो वो फरमाते हैं कि मुझे पता था कि दीन वहाँ नहीं है। आई वॉन्टेड टू मैरी समवन एल्स हु हैड दीन, एंड दिस वॉज अ वेरी डिफ़िकल्ट डिसीजन फॉर मी। लेकिन मैंने कहा मुझे तो माँ यहाँ करनी है, एंड आई डिड नॉट बज फ्रॉम माई डिसीजन, बिकॉज आखिरत का मामला था, दीन का मामला था। तो फरमाते हैं कि आखिरकार माई मदर शी ऑल्सो सेड कि ठीक है, अगर आपकी चाहत इसी के अंदर है तो आप भी इसी में कर लें, अगर इसमें आप खुश रहेंगे। माँ बाप को तो बस यही चाहिए होता है ना कि जिसमें आपकी खुशी है। तो शी ऑल्सो अग्रीड। When the parents they said हाँ, so he says that still मुझे अभी तक दिल में थोड़ा सा हिचकिचाहट थी, वो एक शरह सदर नहीं हो रहा था, इत्मीनान नहीं हो रहा था। तो फिर मैंने इस्तिखारा करना शुरू कर दिया। कहते मैंने इस्तिखारा 1 दिन किया, 2 दिन किया, 3 दिन किया, 7 days, 10 days. For 70 consecutive days, I continued doing istikhara. कि या अल्लाह इफ़ शी इज़ द वन, अल्लाह मेरे दिल को खोल दे, अल्लाह मुझे मेरे दिल में एक इत्मीनान अता फरमा कि इफ़ शी इज़ द वन। अल्लाह की शान फरमाते हैं आफ्टर 70 days, अच्छा द वन शी वाज दैट प्रोस्पेक्टिव स्पाउस, शी बिलोंग्ड फ्रॉम द सिद्दीकी ख़ानदान, दैट ख़ानदान व्हिच गोज़ ऑल द वे बैक टू सैयदना अबू बकर सिद्दीक रज़ियल्लाहु ताला अन्हु। So the Shaykh he mentions that after 70 days फिर मुझे ख्वाब में ज़ियारत हुई, and I saw सैयदना अबू बकर सिद्दीक रज़ियल्लाहु ताला अन्हु, and उन्होंने मुझे फरमाया कि आपको हमारी बेटी से निकाह करने में इतना तरद्दुद क्यों हो रहा है? हाँ, आपको हमारी बेटी से निकाह करने में इतना तरद्दुद क्यों हो रहा है? कहते हैं बस वो दिन, अगले दिन पर मैंने रिश्ता भेज दिया उनको। तो कभी हो जाता है, अगर इंसान इखलास के साथ लगा रहे और इस्तिखारा करें तो अल्लाह ताला दिल को खोल देता है, अल्लाह ताला दिखा देते हैं, अल्लाह ताला दिल में इत्मीनान डाल देता है। तो इस्तिखारा हमें करना चाहिए। इस तरह इस्तिखारा के साथ साथ you should also, like I said, look at the prospective spouse. लेकिन ये उस वक्त होता है जब आपने पहले अपनी तहकीक कर ली and your compatibility देख ली कि है, and worldly compatibility, dini compatibility, all of that is fine. Then the final step is to actually look at that person physically and check your attractiveness to that individual as well. इसमें ये नहीं है कि आपने फर्स्ट स्टेप पे आपने कहा मैं उसका चेहरा तो देख लूँ, बाद में बाकी सारी चीज़ें देखूँगा, ऐसे नहीं। दिस इज़ नॉट सम विंडो शॉपिंग दैट यू आर डूइंग, राइट, कि पहले एक को देखा फिर दूसरा फिर तीसरा फिर जो, ऐसा नहीं। थोड़ा सा कमिटमेंट हो, थोड़ा सा बाकी सारी चीज़ें टिक 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 टिक, एंड देन यस यू कैन गो लुक एट द अदर पर्सन। इनफैक्ट यू शुड लुक एट द पर्सन, लाइक इससे मोहब्बत आपस में बढ़ती है। So the last thing that we want to mention is some du'as for how to get a good spouse. So I will mention about a few du'as here which come in the Quran. एक दुआ तो है which is the dua of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, which is a dua that all of us should remember, all of us should memorize. It's a dua that we can recite after every नमाज पढ़ते हैं। नमाज में यू रिसाइट तशहुद, अशहदु अल्ला इलाहा, राइट, देन यू रिसाइट दुरूद शरीफ, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला, देन यू रिसाइट रब्बी जअलनी मुकीमस सलाती। After that and before saying salam, that is the occasion, the place to recite this particular dua, and you can recite this dua farz में भी और नफल के अंदर भी, and sunnah as well. The dua is as follows: Rabbana hab lana min azwajina वज़ुर्रियातिना कुर्रत आयुन वजअलना लिलमुत्तकीना इमामा. This is 25:74, 25 chapter, verse number 74. इसके मायने ये हैं कि ओ अल्लाह, grant us such wives and offsprings which will be the coolness of my eyes, and Allah make me the leader of the pious. हमारा तजर्बा ये है कि जो शख्स इस दुआ को शादी से पहले पढ़ता है और फिर शादी के बाद भी पढ़ता रहता है, अल्लाह ताला अज़वाजी ज़िंदगी के अंदर सुकून और इत्मीनान अता फरमा देता है. लेकिन ये उस वक्त है जो इसको आदत बना लेता है कि आई हैवंट कम अक्रॉस एनी सिंगल इंडिविजुअल जिसकी ये आदत हो कि वो इस दुआ को पढ़ते हैं हर फ़र्ज़ में, हर सुन्नत, हर नफिल में, और उनको फिर परेशानियाँ ऐसी हो रही हों कि इट्स अनमैनेजेबल, अनबेरेबल. आई हैवंट कम अक्रॉस अ सिंगल सच केस इन माई लाइफ. और हमारे मशाइख फरमाते हैं कि उनकी ज़िंदगी के अंदर भी कोई ऐसा केस नहीं हुआ कि किसी ने आके कहा हो ऐसी बात. तो ये कुरान की दुआ है, इसकी बरकत है, छोटी सी दुआ है, इसको याद कर लें और इसको पढ़ लें. इंशाल्लाह जो शादीशुदा नहीं है, अल्लाह ताला will give you a pious spouse, and those who are married, Allah Ta'ala will bless you with the sukoon in that life, in that marital life. One dua. Second dua is the dua of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. When Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he was unmarried, so he was sitting, he saw that samne there are some people who are taking water from the well, and then there are two women, two girls, who are just standing on one side in the corner waiting for their turn. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam came to them and said that, "Aap yahan kyun intezar kariye?" So they said that our father is old and we have to wait in line, that these people first will take, वो पहले पानी निकालेंगे, उसके बाद फिर हमारी बारी आएगी, फिर हम पानी निकाल सकते हैं. तो सैयदना मूसा अलैहिस्सलाम की नहीं, मैं आपकी मदद करता हूँ. उन्होंने उनके लिए पानी निकाल के दिया, वो पानी लेके चली गई. Then Sayyidina Musa अलैहिस्सलाम, he came, he sat under the tree, and under a tree he made a particular dua which is mentioned in the Quran. Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khairin fakir. What this means is that, oh Allah, indeed I am needy and fakir for whatever good you would send upon me. ठीक है. As a result of this, what happened, those two women, they came back to Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam and they said that my father, हमारे जो वालिद साहब हैं, वो आपको बुला रहे. And then eventually, to cut this long story short, that Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam ends up marrying one of the daughters of a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So these are the two prophetic duas, we should make them. इसके अलावा एक आम दुआ भी है जो हम मांग सकते हैं. वो ये है कि अल्लाह ताला, आपने कुरान में फरमाया कि आपने हर चीज़ को जोड़ा जोड़ा बनाया. सूरह यासीन में आता है दैट सुब्हानल्लज़ी खलक़ल अज़वाजा कुल्लहा, कि अल्लाह ताला ने हर चीज़ को जोड़ा जोड़ा बनाया. तो या अल्लाह, आपने हर चीज़ को अगर जोड़ा जोड़ा बनाया है, तो अल्लाह मुझे भी जोड़ा जोड़ा बनाए. तो अल्लाह जो मेरी जोड़ी है ना, वो मुझे अता फरमा दे. नहीं समझे? अल्लाह आपने हर चीज़ को जोड़ा बनाया ना, तो जो मेरी जोड़ी है अल्लाह मुझे अता फरमा दे. अब ये थोड़ा एक इंसान का ज़ौक़ और शौक़ है, उसके साथ दुआ मांगे तो कभी इंसान की ऐसी दुआएं भी लग जाती हैं और कबूल हो जाती है. एक और इसी तरीके से एक अल्लाह वालों की दुआ थी. वो फरमाते हैं कि या अल्लाह, आप अकेले हैं और ये अकेलापन सिर्फ आप ही को अच्छा लगता है. अल्लाह आप अकेले हैं, तौहीद, राइट. अल्लाह आप अकेले हैं, लेकिन ये अकेलापन सिर्फ आप ही को अच्छा लगता है. अल्लाह मुझे तो मेरा जोड़ अता कर देना. तो हम भी अल्लाह ताला से मांगे, अल्लाह ताला इस मामले को आसान फरमा देंगे. तो यहाँ तक तो कुछ बातें थी. आप लोग थक गए? थक गए तो मैं बंद कर देता हूँ.